What would you say if I told you that despite hearing about Nvidia for the past few weeks non-stop on CNBC, mainstream media, X, wherever, I will show you a clip, 3-minute clip by one of the GOATs, the greatest in the business, Aswath the Damodaran, in which he explains more about Nvidia than you heard so far in every other interview combined. You have to see this. Check it out.
Let's talk about Nvidia again. I mean, you own it, so you should have that big smile on your face. Is it defying logic to you, or just does this make perfect sense?
No, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but on an intrinsic value base, it's really tough to get to $3 trillion. That said, though, if you're designing the perfect momentum company from scratch, Nvidia would be it. Yeah, you've got a great story. A CEO who sticks to the story, no distractions, is able to meet expectations in the short term because they've set the game up. And you've got a market that contributes to the mix. I mean, I think that you're seeing one of the great momentum plays of all time playing out in front of you.
Wow. Are you reevaluating, I guess, is maybe the best word I can think of at least now, of how you would view this stock in terms of its value? If you thought it was overvalued before,
right,
what do you think now, and are you looking at it, is it forcing you to look at it differently?
Oh, well, with every earnings report, you're always required to go back and look at your basic story, and I think my basic story is bigger than it was a year ago, partly because of what Nvidia has delivered, and partly because of what AI is showing it can do in the overall economy and market. I was listening in on the story about HP Enterprises reporting higher earnings because of AI. You saw that with the big tech companies. I think you're seeing AI percolate, go beyond the architecture part of the business into services, into products, into the rest, the software. And I think you're going to start to see the ripple effect show up in other companies.
So if I raise my hand in your class and I say simply, Professor, is Nvidia overvalued? What do you say today?
I would say based on my story, I mean, $3 trillion is too high a number, but I think this is a story where you could find plausible paths to get to $3 trillion if you add on additional markets. So if somebody says, I'm buying Nvidia because I think it's cheap, it's not my job to argue with them and tell them that it's not cheap. I think the story is, in a sense, and that's one of the things about momentum companies, is there is a plausible path to get to these really high numbers. And when the momentum is in your favor, you'll find those paths.
That's why it's so hard, I guess, to be negative. If you say there's such a plausible path, your words, that people sort of can see that, that's why it's hard to be short names like this. Let me ask you this. When you were last with me, you said, quote, May will be a month that determines how returns for the year will look. So, April was ugly. May, we came roaring back. Does that make you optimistic now for the rest of the year?
It makes me feel much more upbeat leading into the political season, because I have a feeling that the next few months we are going to see the political play come into markets as well. I'm surprised it hasn't shown up more strongly yet, because I think we are heading in an election. There are going to be uncertainties that come with that. But I feel much better going into the summer now than I did a month ago.
Now, obviously, this interview is a good example of why Aswath the Damodaran is one of the greatest in the business. If you haven't heard about him, he's the head of valuations at NYU. He's definitely one of the best. Now, what he said in this video requires a little bit of deciphering because he's a very elusive guy and he uses a lot of hints. But I'm going to do it in this video, so don't worry. So when he says that Nvidia is a great momentum company, that is a hint. You have to understand what he's doing here. Despite how it sounds, it's not really a compliment. In fact, it is a warning. What he's telling you that right now it's riding very high. And there's a good probability that it rides high for a long, long time. Weeks, months, who knows how long. But when he says momentum, essentially what he's implying is that the current share price movement is completely detached from the fundamentals. Now, the fundamentals will eventually catch up with Nvidia, I have no doubt, and I'll explain in a second why I think it's one of the best companies to invest in for the next 10 years, hands down. But what he's saying is that the current price is just flying in the momentum, not on any fundamental analysis. And unless you're a momentum swing trader, for you as a long-term investor, that's just a warning to chill out, relax, take it slow. There's no need to chase these momentum trades. Now, he's also saying in this interview quite clearly that Nvidia isn't fake. And I agree, Nvidia is for real. The current pricing is not ridiculous. It actually reflects a lot of success down the road. But with the way Nvidia has been executing over the past few years, with the quality of their management, with the amount of demand and the growth in this market, it makes perfect sense to be priced like this. He explains, it's not about me saying that this is overvalued when he was asked this. It's not the point. What he's trying to tell you here is that certain companies, really good companies, will always, by definition, be overvalued, overpriced. There's always a premium to be paid for something that's the best of its kind. It's never going to be priced fairly. It's always going to be a little bit at a premium. The idea here, what he's trying to tell you, is you're never going to buy this cheap. You can try and time the market, but it's going to be very hard. What he's trying to tell you, in other words, is to buy slow. If you think Nvidia is a company to own for the next 10 years, buy it slow over the next 10 years. Slow and steady every single week, every single month, every single quarter, whatever suits you. Build a budget, figure out how much money you're spending every month, how much money you have to invest, allocate a certain amount, and just buy it every single tranche. Now, whenever the stock drops below a certain threshold, which you can determine, for example, 20% below its 52-week high, you can increase your pace. And whenever the stock gets too expensive, then you slow down and you buy it regularly. That's as simple as it gets. It's not even complicated. Now, there's no doubt that Nvidia is a terrific AI infrastructure play. In fact, it might be the best of them. 5 years, the stock did 2,200%. Revenue for the past 5 years is up 420%. It's trading at a 32 forward PE. It's not even that expensive. With operating margin being at 54% and cash increasing by 250% over the past 5 years, this is definitely the AI hardware king, no doubt. This has nothing to do with Cisco. All you out there who are being fooled into thinking that it will crash like Cisco did because at some point the CapEx investments will run out, it's just horse manure. What happens in telecom does not happen in computing. Laying down a fiber optic cable isn't like buying a Blackwell chip. As AI becomes more advanced, the requirements from the hardware are going to get more and more intense. It's not going to stop in 3 and 5 and 6 years. It's just going to get better and better, bigger and bigger, more expensive. Nvidia is set for the next 10 years easily. Any comparison to Cisco just shows a lack of understanding. Right now, the current share price reflects about 50% growth per year for the next 5 years consecutively. It's going to be very hard to meet. And it's okay to say that this is an insane assumption. It's a very tall order for any company, except Nvidia. Nvidia has done it in the past, and it will do it in the future. They have the management, they have the team, they have the perfect setup to get it done. And while I think in the next 3 years Nvidia might do 200%, the next 5 years might do 400%, I think those are the numbers. Nothing is guaranteed in life. Nothing. And also the path also isn't guaranteed. It might have a bad year. It might have a bad couple years. You never want to time the stock. You don't want to FOMO in because you're afraid you're going to miss out. That's the worst thing. That's what the point of mainstream media is, to convince you that if you don't buy Nvidia right now at this price, you're going to miss it forever. This is the new timeshare marketing scheme using mainstream media. Ignore it. If you like Nvidia, buy it slow over time. Get in this patient mindset. Understand that missing out on a huge profit does not define you in any way, shape, or form. It does not mean you're a worse investor because you have. Understand that losing an opportunity will not hurt your ego at all. Accept the path. Keep your eye on the ball, slow and steady. Time in the market always beats timing the market. Remember that. I'll see you in the next one.